Good, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brandon Croucher, CEO of Delight. We're just going to go with that. This is one square at a time. We take a leadership perspective and only move. I'm getting to you, Brett. I see you over there all like, he didn't introduce me. I'm going to get to you. Hold on. One square at a time, where we have the leadership perspective of leading from one square at a time, like a king's perspective, understanding how to get all the right tools to build your whole team. So Brett Gordon over here is the guru behind this all and the brains behind the teachings, teaching us our tools. So Brett, businesses are people too. Thank you for joining me today again. I look forward to doing this, co-host. How you doing?
Doing awesome. Aloha. And I wish I could say it in a whole bunch of other languages, because I've actually had a chance to visit a lot of the areas within Polynesia and love the culture. And now we're talking about Moana today, which I think is super exciting because I love the movie.
Oh, yeah. It's one of my favorites. It really is.
Well, it's so weird. I was telling my girlfriend the other day, I was like, I've seen Moana a bunch of times, or so I thought. But I've got this bad habit of falling asleep during movies. And I finally really watched it. But when I prepare for these, I'm watching it with real intent. And I was like, wow, there's so much. I mean, it was like almost a whole new movie for me. And the messages within the movie were like all over the place, in terms of there was a lot of different things that really came to me and related to what's going on in the world today. What we need to look at from within ourselves and within others in order to really be able to appreciate the world from multiple perspectives.
I agree.
And to realize that sometimes, when people appear to be holding you back, what they're really doing is they're trying to protect you, maybe protect you from things that they experienced in their life, and don't want you to experience that same kind of tragedy or pain or whatever. And just the other day, my mother, she always says this, which I appreciate the heart where they come from, but sometimes I'm not, how or when they say it doesn't really resonate with me. And that is, I only wish I could take their pain for them.
Yeah. And
I understand where that's coming from in the heart, but sometimes actually we do need to experience that pain. And oftentimes, as as you're growing up, and especially when you get older and you look back and say, oh, my parents did say something like that, didn't they? Like, oh gosh, now it makes sense to me why they were trying to tell me to do it. Or after we break our leg because we jumped off of a roof and they were telling us don't jump off the roof, you're like, oh, yeah, I guess that's why they were trying to tell me that.
Did you jump off a roof without me?
No, actually, my dad told me one time, he said, jump from the top of the swing set to the roof of the garage. And I did, but I only got like my upper body on there. And I pulled myself up, and then I fell down off of there. But I was afraid of hitting my head on the swing set that I just jumped from, because it was one of those that had like a pole sticking out. So I walked out onto that pole, and I ended up breaking a couple of bones in my foot, or cracking them. And it's just one of those things.
I got one question, because I know you and I can get distracted, and then we're gonna go right back to Moana. How many bones have you broken? Do you know?
Yeah, I've only really broken, I think, 3, 4. Okay. One of them, I swear, I'm pretty sure I broke my tailbone, but that was falling off of an elevated wall. You know how when lawns go up and then they put this wall on it, and right below the wall is like a sidewalk?
Yeah.
So in college, screwing around, at that time part of a frat, went over to a sorority house, and we were shooting like fireworks at the sorority house. And I was backing up after shooting the fireworks and caught my foot on the wall, went over and landed on my tailbone. Luckily, it was kind of winter time, so wearing more of a thick coat. But for months, I was in pain, and I think that may be a part of the reason that sometimes my back flares up.
I'll just say this.
Tricks, right?
I'll just say this. I'll even give you the tailbone, which would be 4.
Yeah, that's. Mm-hmm.
My nose alone is 7.
Wow. And were you in boxing or anything, or is that from sports, or is that just from other things?
A couple fights. Honestly, it's more like it was more the from being a stupid kid to being dumb in high school to always wanting to try stuff. There's accidents that have happened from being tackled in a pickup game on Thanksgiving Day where I got all right, I'll give you this one. All right. And this shouldn't be the one I give you with broken nose stories, but it's one of the good ones. I intercepted the ball and was running. And the guy that went to tackle me, I knew he was going to go low on me, so I spun, and he played for a Division II school here in Ohio, Akron University, and I knew he was going to go low, and he was like a All-American, like good kind of guy, but not All-American, like Division II, great, get looked at to be a practice squad guy, but he's still a great guy. But I got out of his tackle by the way I turned, kept running, and got hit up in the air, into the ground, into a root, right into my face, down and out by a guy who was drafted by the New Orleans Saints later on that year.
Wow.
Or the next year. So
well, at least you got a story to tell and some connections that make sense. And oh man,
it hurt so bad. Like everybody thought I was gonna die, and I'm like, no, I'm not meant to die. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, guys, this is like the 5th time I've broken my nose, and this is only like the 5th best story of it. Like honestly, I've had a lot better stories. So all right, back to Moana, because that was like a 5-minute conversation. That's my ADD kicking in. But this movie I liked because it's got the cuteness of a cartoon, but it has the adult humor that parents enjoy as well. And what I thought was really interesting is the life lessons on this one. So Moana's the daughter of a tribe chief, and her grandmother was I'm gonna say the wrong thing. Wasn't she like the
she was kind of like she even says of herself that she was kind of like the crazy lady. She was like the medicine woman, kind of the storyteller. She was kind of the one who would teach the kids history.
Yes.
Through story. And it's interesting because, that there's a kind of a saying, and I'm not sure exactly which. Well, even in the Native Americans, you talk story. Talking story is about passing along history through story. And that's what she was about. And the cool thing was actually that she would tell the kids some scary stories. At the very beginning, she's telling them a scary story, and Moana loves it. But Moana's father comes in and basically is like, no, there's not that kind of darkness. This is not really true. Grandma is basically telling you, pulling your leg kind of thing, to try to settle the kids down and to not put as much credibility in the story, which eventually is really the story that Moana is built on.
Correct. I think that was why Grandma was telling the story. It was one of those where she was teaching her granddaughter, and her father didn't want her to know it because they never come out and say it, but because of Moana being a girl, it's her father seemed to not want her to do things just for her own safety, and that's what made this even more of a story of like pride of power, because she really did push through a lot of things. Like I'm not a sailor in any way, and one of the things she had to do was learn how to sail and get that boat out there. And for me, that was kind of fun to watch her connect with the water like that. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm skipping ahead. Let's jump back. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to bring it back anyhow because we'll progress to that. But, you know, one of the things that was part of when in one of the songs, Grandma Tala was basically talking to Moana, saying, you know, the village may think I'm crazy or say that I drift too far, but once you know what you like, well, there you are, right? And then she's like, you are your father's daughter, stubbornness and pride. Mind what he says, but remember, you may hear a voice inside. And if that voice starts to whisper to follow the farthest star, Moana, that voice inside is who you are. And I think that that's really kind of something that struck me, because it's oftentimes, like I was saying at the beginning, parents may try to protect you. And they try to tell you, no, don't do that. Don't become an artist. Don't become a writer. Don't become this. Don't do that, because you're not going to make money. You're not going to be happy. You're going to get hurt. You know, all of those things. And those are really coming from their heart, but you need to really take it in, but still follow that farthest star, follow that voice. Otherwise, you can develop a life which is okay. The issue is, how many people really want to live a life that's just okay?
Correct.
And that's where, you know, Moana really starts to move on from the stories, from the protection, because her father experienced going out to sea or beyond the coral reef, which was protecting the island, protecting the ocean, that they would fish within the coral reef. But when he went out there, he actually lost some friends and died. I mean, they died. He didn't die, obviously. But he didn't want anybody in the village to go outside of that coral reef, to protect his village, to keep his village happy, to tell his village, you are happy. Look, we've got the coconuts. We get all these different things from the coconuts. You know, basically Mother Earth gives us everything that we need right here. But, you know, their fishing started to not be so good anymore. And some things with the plants were starting to not be so good anymore. And Moana was the one who was like, well, let's go fish outside of the coral reef. There's more fish out there. And he tried to stop them, and he did as the chief. But then Moana started to follow that voice. And that all stemmed from when Moana was just a little baby out there, and she went to the ocean. She kept being attracted to the water, and Dad is afraid of that. But she goes out there, and then she actually communicates with the ocean.
Yes, she does.
By first,
she gets mad at it.
well, yeah, but you know, it started off because she started to get that. She just had the heart to be able to protect that little baby turtle. To go out to the ocean. And then the ocean then responded, seeing that Moana had what the ocean felt was the personality, the strength to be able to give the heart of Tafiti, the stone that eventually she needed to get back to Tafiti, which was kind of like an island goddess, if you want to look at it that way. And the ocean was able to connect with her, and she was able to connect with the ocean, and it protected her. Absolutely. Oops, this side.
Took me a second. Did you see me come up like this and go,
yeah.
But yeah, that's defeat.
So yeah, here's Moana really kind of touching a wave. The wave is over her head, and she kind of just, you know, right in the middle of the ocean. The water cleared out, and she's just kind of pointing at it, just, you know, like any kind of a real innocent child, like, wow, isn't this cool? And we lose a lot of that innocence as we go through our life, and we don't even, if that were to happen to a lot of us, we're like, holy crap, we got to run the other way. It's going to wipe us out, as opposed to going, wow, this is cool. Let me touch this and see what happens.
We wouldn't be noticing it because we'd be on our phones.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. Exactly.
I honestly, I think the thing is, like, that's the childlike faith. Even if that's something that we think is outside of that, it's like, no, hold on a second. That's why as a child it can show up. It believes things like that should happen. It like we as kids, we believe these bigger things are happening like that can be there. At least that's my philosophy.
Well, it's really cool because as a child, when you look at it, you're like, oh, that's childhood innocence.
Mm-hmm.
When we get to be an adult, they're like, oh, you're a fool.
Correct.
The difference between a fool and innocence as a child is the perception of those around.
Mm-hmm.
And it's when we tend to shut down imagination as we grow older.
But who shuts down our imagination? I'm going to get right here.
We shut down our imagination.
Why?
Because we're looking for acceptance. We're looking to be a part of. We're looking to follow those that are, well, those that either are very much our mentors or are our parents who are our mentors, but not necessarily leading us in the direction that may be more natural to us.
Right. I can understand that. Okay. I also go with the fact that the keeping up with the Joneses theory. We all create the world we want around us in a sense, but like at the same point, if all you're ever doing is trying to keep up with everybody else, you're never going to find your own.
Well, that's true. The world tends to envelop us, right? As
yes.
a child, it's enveloping us from the beginning. And then as we continue to grow, our belief systems are being imposed upon us because we don't really have enough history yet to really choose a lot of the beliefs that are being imposed on us. It's like religion. My father's side of the family was Jewish. My mother's side of the family was Protestant. I ended up getting confirmed Protestant because my dad's like, just make your mother happy. I did that, but the minister was always telling my mom that I was like a difficult person because I didn't believe when he said you got to have faith. I was like, give me the science behind it and prove these things that you're saying.
Okay, can I rebuttal you on this?
Sure.
Wouldn't that be the voice Moana had to listen for and go find?
Mm.
Boom, shaka, game over. 18-minute episode. I did it. No, but think about it. What you're saying is you're supposed to go find that. You're supposed to go do that. And the minister, you didn't have faith because the thing is, faith is they want you to say, hey, this person, human, whatever, like, is a god, and we want you to admit that they're better, that they're the one you need to pray to. But with what you're saying is find that inner voice, just like
find that faith in yourself.
Yeah, that inner voice, because she had to listen for that inner. What did Grandma say? When that inner voice comes in, go to the furthest star.
Yeah.
And what is it? Go for wish upon a star. I don't remember it. The Disney thing.
Oh.
Yeah. When I wish upon a star, I wonder who I am, and then I want to go away, and I think I'm drowning. No, that's not it.
No, that's when you open up the waters and you walk through it, and hence Moses.
I actually got a meme that I have to send you after this about Moses. We could use it for the picture because it's hysterical. It's a school of fish, and you'll never believe why we were late for school because Moses parted the water and they were stopped. That's going to be the picture for this one, I think. No, I'm just kidding. But Moana had to find that inner voice. And the thing that's interesting is to me that I noticed was she has to. My favorite song is the one where she's climbing the mountain, And she has to go up there to be able to put the rock on the top. You have to get to the top. And that's what the tribe's traditions were. That's what the tribe remembered everything by. That's how you judged who was going to be able to make it to the top and be there and like get the rock of balance and all that. So there was a lot there, but what's interesting was the history behind it, because that's how Moana realized she was more. She realized by going up there, and then when she came down, she had to go out and get taught that she doesn't have the right equipment. And because of that, she got thrown back. And the ocean wasn't going to let her die. The ocean, trust me, you see it. She looks like she's in pain, and like she's just like, why would I feel like I feel like I should give up. We've all been there.
Yeah.
And then she turns around and says, Grandma, the crazy witch or crazy medicine lady. That's it.
Yeah.
Grandma turns around, and what does Grandma do? Shows her where these other boats are and what their past were.
Exactly.
And it's I think that's interesting, because I look at what generations like my grandparents' generation did to build the economy they did, that after that became the boomers and then us, the millennials. And we're a pain in the ass, but we need to be listening to our elders because they taught us things. And I don't mean the boomers. Fuck the boomers. Oh, I'm sorry, Brett. You're on the other side. But like, for real, like, we need to be looking at, like, my grandma and I talk a lot, and she's in hospice, and she really teaches me a lot of things about how they did things back then. Like TV, why would she need a cell phone that has a TV on it and stuff like that? Why would she need something that gives her all these different things?
Right.
She just wants a book. She just wants to relax. She doesn't need the extra stuff. And the minimalist lifestyle is something we're starting to glorify, but my grandma knows what it's like to not have anything whatsoever for real.
Well, and yet what they had at the time was actually not necessarily nothing. It was actually a comfortable life at the time. So, our expectations and what we're willing to do and what we expect to get back have changed significantly over time. And we have to keep things into perspective, and this is where we start to run into some problems, even like in the case of Moana, where what is happening today, like in Moana, the fish were becoming depleted. They didn't know why, but inside the coral reef, it was getting harder to get the fish. The plants were starting to change. Well, if you go back in history and just look at or talk to people in the history, they got everything that they needed, and what they believed at that time was staying within the coral reef made sense.
Correct.
But when things change, when the environment changes, when beliefs change, when science changes, when Earth changes, we have to also change. We may have had a plan, and the way I always talk about a plan or whatever, even in the military, I used to work on plans for a lot. I was a war planner for logistics. And the very first thing that happens when you pull that plan off the shelf is you change it. A plan is a great place to deviate from.
Mm-hmm.
It provides a direction, but realize that once the plan starts to be actionable,
the
world is different.
And I think that's the thing, that's why they say set goals. They say have a vision, take time to actually plant the seeds. You can't, I think farming needs to be taught to everybody in school. And I'm not even kidding, because it gets them dirty. It teaches them that taking the time to actually grow something, what that actually does that's different. Like, you need to water. Why are we watering? Why are we doing this? Oh, photosynthesis. No, teach them why that is something that patience comes from. Why talking to your plant. I'm in a bet right now that I can't go 7 days without talking, or I could win a trip to Maui. Now, I talk a lot, but to win a free trip to Maui, I wouldn't talk for 7 days. I'd take that in a heartbeat. And then everybody that saw this bet started commenting to me saying, you talk to your dogs, you talk to the cats, you talk to the plants. Like, there's no way you're gonna make this, Brandon.
Hey,
Oh.
you're going to do it right today, right now, because as we're talking, we're going to talk to Maui.
Ooh, Maui, dude. All right. So Dwayne
So
the
here's
Rock
your free
Johnson.
trip to Maui already. You got it.
So Maui is Maui is played by Dwayne the Rock Johnson, and Dwayne the Rock Johnson has come into his own as a celebrity and created a whole world that I'm sure at first he never thought he'd see. And it's really impressive that he actually steals. It's like Robin Williams back in the day with the genie. He actually comes in and steals the show. And he is clever. He's funny. It's the banter between him and Moana that's cute. But it also shows the balance in my eyes of how you need different things. His gifts, his talents, his abilities to be a sailor, to being able to a hunter, to be he's a demigod, and he can do a lot of crazy cool things. But at the end of the day, Moana is the one he needed to help actually get him to that next phase. You never know what it's going to take to get you there, and you need a person that's going to be, or an individual that can do the things you can't, that you can believe in. You know, you have to have that trust and balance.
Yeah, actually, right here, Moana, grandma is on her deathbed, and as Moana is talking with her, grandma basically encourages Moana that with her last, as grandma's almost on her last breath, she's encouraging Moana to go find Maui, who was the demigod, to help and have him restore the heart, because that was kind of the belief that Maui needed to restore the heart because
he
Maui
stole it originally.
Right. And remember, Maui actually, this is what a lot of people may not have remembered, is Maui actually did have two human parents, but they threw him away and he didn't know why. So here's, this is bringing it back into real life where parents either, don't take care of the children, don't want the children, and either physically give them away or don't provide the kind of support. So then the children actually get raised by somebody else or some other group. And in Maui's case, he got raised by the gods.
Correct.
And the gods gave him these powers. And the gods gave him the fish hook, which actually gave him the ability to be a shapeshifter. Now, that's freaking awesome to be a shapeshifter. But you know what? In life, we really, although we may not be able to change to be a bird, but we can get a bird's eye view of things. We may not be able to change our skin color or who we may appear outside, but personality-wise, we can be a chameleon. And these things are all critical to being able to even survive in the wild. Now the wild is in the city too. And we have to change. We have to look at things from a bird's eye view. We have to look at things from an ant's point of view, looking up at the big things, looking down at the big things, looking at it while we're a fly on the wall. We talk about all these things as part of, our speech. So really, although we're not shapeshifters, we oftentimes speak in terms of being a shapeshifter.
True. That's true.
Which is really pretty cool.
I agree. That's a pretty good way of looking at that. I like how you did that, because I pictured each thing you said as you said it too, the chameleon and everything. And I'm like, wow, we do that. We paintbrush our face to match. We chameleon to signify we are the communities we're in. And then we're flying above sometimes. And oh yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Good analogy, Brett. Good analogy.
Hey, those things come to you when you're a fly on the wall or you're at the bird's eye view. You gotta sometimes you got to get into the details, and sometimes you got to get above the forest.
True. Sometimes you got to climb a tree.
Exactly. Sometimes you got to climb a mountain. and that's even harder. But
I like climbing.
it's awesome.
Oh yeah.
I do it here in Vegas. You can go over to Red Rock and you can climb up in Red Rock and you can get up on top of the mountains there and look down into the valley and really see that Vegas is a valley. But when you're in Vegas, it's like a big city, especially if you're down on the Strip where you can't see the buildings are so tall and you seem so small, and what looks like a short distance between this hotel and that hotel, once you start walking it, you're like, holy crap, this is way different than my perspective or my perception is. So to be able to get up there on the mountain and look down at the valley and see how that's surrounded by mountains and see how insignificant really the Strip is when you're up here. This is, I think, all the different things that Moana experienced, also through Maui, and Maui even experienced through Moana. So just, I think, really cool. And, they go out onto the expanse of the ocean. And what does Maui really become? He becomes the mentor on how to sail, how to read your direction from the stars or from the water. And I love the one scene where he's like laying down because he got he got shot in the butt with the paralyzing dart, right?
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing.
Yes. He's like, put your hand in the water, and if the water feels warm, you're going the right direction. And then he like pees in the water, and she's like, that's disgusting.
They had that too. Whenever he did something to be mean to her, the ocean would respond. And so it was a very cute banter because the ocean was like, yeah, Maui, no. It wouldn't let him get away with anything. So it was pretty fun to watch the two of them banter back and forth. I like I said, I like this movie.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of it comes back into real life too. It's like so you may not be living with a demigod. You may be living with your parents. Sometimes the world comes around to kind of say, hey, you know what mom and dad just did to you or whatever, especially as we get older, I always say paybacks are an MF, right? That's kind of like the ocean coming back and saying, Maui, shut your trap.
Sorry, I thought of a good joke and I just made it up on the spot. So my parents are worried, like one day whose house the joke is, whose house are they going to have to move into? And my dad always says, well, I'm not going to move into anything. Well, that's probably true because it looks like all your kids are going to be moving back in with you. Thanks for keeping it, Dad.
I'm working on just the opposite. I bought a house. I was expected to live in it. Then my mom and dad needed it because my mom had a stroke, so I made it into something that's more handicap accessible. Then my brother needed it, so he's living there. Then his girlfriend needed it. They're living there. I had to move out. I couldn't. There were too many people in my house.
And you're like, I'll go anywhere else.
So, it's one of those things where you really need to take life in stride. Mm-hmm. And there is a circle of life. In many different aspects, there's circles of life. Oftentimes, something that we learned young, we forget about when we get older. We get smacked in the face by the ocean, and we get back to what the basics were and say, oh, I forgot about what I learned there. I need to use that to navigate life now. It's very interesting. Grandma Tala, she encouraged Moana to open up to her emotions and to understand why she felt hesitant to return home. This is Tala's spirit after they were in the ocean. And
that's a very touching scene. Really quick, I'm sorry, I gotta do this because this is a touching scene. Brett and I actually seem to grab onto certain scenes and for each other in different ways. But Grandma passes away, and it's what leads Moana to be able to go. And when Grandma's spirit goes, she turns into you see her shadow in a sense go into the ocean, and she becomes a stingray, and she had a big tattoo on her back of a stingray, and that was significant. Yeah. Oh, a what?
Manta ray.
No, not a manta ray. A manta ray is the it's a stingray, the one with the big one and then a tail that's long and skinny.
Yeah, that's a manta ray too. Either way, it becomes a ray. She had it on her back too. She had it tattooed like you have on your arm. One day you're gonna have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles coming to you to provide you direction.
That was my 30th birthday cake. I look for it again on 40th. I love it.
So anyhow, I interrupted your story there. Go ahead.
But she turns into a manta ray, and she goes out into the ocean and goes right under her boat. And that was how she comes to Moana to talk to her. And I just thought that was really touching because it shows how grandma was like showing her love and helping her get that, like letting her know she's going to be okay. And I thought that was really creative. We all feel like that happens at times. Like, oh, that was blah, blah, blah saying goodbye. That was blah, blah, blah doing this. And I thought that was a very cute way of Disney doing that, Disney Pixar. So I thought that doesn't Disney own Pixar?
Yes, they do.
And Fox and everything else. Sorry, ADD. But that scene was very, very one that I truly, as I was watching it, I was very impressed with how they connected the two of them to make it be where Moana knew she was able to go do her. She was on the right mission, and I thought that was really cute because sometimes we all need that light to help us.
Well, that's true, and this is where Moana really got to realize that she has this everlasting love for her people and for the sea. So, initially it was really kind of being torn between the two, and eventually it becomes how to meld the two together.
Yeah.
And the sea becomes, just not a big, well, in Moana's case especially, the sea went from being something to be feared because of the stories and because of what her father was teaching her to being a protector. The sea became a protector of her as she went on these voyages to take herself, the Eye of Te Fiti and Maui to find Te Fiti.
Yeah.
And Maui didn't want to go.
No, because Te Fiti's that big demon thing. I'm glad I switched spots right here. Right on Brett's right side of him, he's got Te Fiti, which you can see it looks like a demon. And Te Fiti's the one that beat him before, and that's why. That's an ego boost or ego drop. That's like Stipe Miocic just lost his huge heavyweight fight. You think he wants to come back? He probably doesn't even know what day it is yet. He got knocked out so hard.
Well, the cool thing is these two are actually the same. You've got Te Fiti, who is green, the island and the lushness and the one that they want to restore. And Te Kā is the alter ego of Te Fiti when the heart of Te Fiti was stolen by Maui.
Correct.
And that brought darkness upon the world. That brought this fire and brimstone kind of thing that is part of Te Kā. And Moana was under the belief that she had to take this heart of Te Fiti, and they had to find Te Fiti, which eventually they get to this island that looks kind of like a woman laying down. So they're like, that's Te Fiti, and she climbs up the mountain, and she's looking over the mountain to try to find the symbol, which would indicate this is where I need to put the stone. And this is all while Te Kā is fighting Maui and stuff. Maui's trying to keep Te Kā back, the dark side back, if you want to call it that. And Moana can't find the spot to put the heart. She turns back and looks at Te Kā, And in Teka's chest, she can see the symbol of where the stone has to go. So kind of sometimes where you initially thought you needed to go and what you initially thought was your mission in life may actually be different, and it may be down a tougher path than you may have been following. So just because you've got fire and brimstone or something that's scarier, that may be the direction of your life. And oftentimes that comes up as we're pursuing our life as a family, as we're pursuing our professional life. We get into a path which keeps the food on the table, and we live an okay life, but it's not as fulfilling as we would want it to be, because this path of the fire and brimstone or the dark side or whatever that we may have to come up against or we may have to overcome. Instead, we get back, just like Maui was trying to do, get back on the raft and get the hell out of here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to do this but then ultimately when you do follow that path and you're able to put that heart of Te Fiti in and find out how you really fit into that, what you thought was the hard thing to do, the sometimes the dark side, or in your mind it was the dark side, really on the other side is the grass is greener on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to get through sometimes where the forest fire may have burnt the grass to begin with in order to get to the other side and see the green that's still there and realize that, yes, it was tough. Or, even if you want to look at it from Vegas perspective, the old settlers and explorers and everything, they had to go through the desert.
True.
And, things that you thought were humanly impossible to get through in order to get over the mountains and into the green of California or the gold strike or whatever they were trying for. But you had to get through that real tough spot, or you had to get through the plains in the winter. Those types of things are all just examples of this same type of a struggle to the bright side that we have to go through. And we do that throughout life. We go to school, we do what we do. We're trying to find a better way of life. I don't think that there's anything that is going to be challenged about being a better kind of life. How you define better is definitely different.
Mm-hmm.
One person to another. I mean, how many people wanted to live in a freaking desert? And yet now the desert, the oasis of Las Vegas is here, where you otherwise could live in a mountain where there's lots of plentiful resources to be able to live with.
Isn't there a drought in Vegas? I thought you guys can't do LA has rolling blackouts. You guys have rolling waterouts.
We do.
I made that up.
No. We do, but where all the water goes is actually California. It's that Lake Mead is not being replenished at the same level it was 30 years ago by the snows and things and climate change and so forth, which you can always talk about
another time.
Climate change at a different time, or the cause of it. But the use of the water and the majority of the water in Lake Mead is actually going to California, with Vegas and Arizona getting a smaller amount, or Arizona getting more than Vegas getting a small amount. And we have gone through a change where we've taken out a lot of the grass and so forth in Vegas in order to use less water, because watering grass in 115 degrees in order to keep it lush and green consumes a ton of water.
That's true. But I also, just because I had to ask, excuse me, that Takiki, the fire one, I forgot their name. I always say it wrong.
Teka, yeah.
Oh yeah, Taka. Taka was you have to burn everything up to be able to build fresh. And I think sometimes we forget that to get the most lush and like vibrant and resetting and all that. And Taka was angry. And I think that we don't realize that sometimes our anger is that fire. And it's like me. I don't like to get angry. I'm a happy-go-lucky guy. Happy-go-lucky guy, and I really, truly want the best for people. But the thing is, I know that being able to truly control that and have that heart be put in the right place and having it be put right by you in the right area, just like what happened there in the movie, it resets it, and it can be plentiful if you take care of it. And look what happened after that. It turned into the what's her name? See, ADD.
Tefiti.
Yeah, Tahiti. Tafiki, which is the lush green island that they were looking for. And what's interesting is they had to go through the fire to be able to make it grow, get the lush. Go ahead. I see you ready to rebuttal me. Go.
No, I'm not. I'm actually going to just use a different example, and this is, you know, I love the Polynesian cultures and the beliefs of the Polynesians and the Hawaiians, which are part of Polynesia. Tafiti would not be Tafiti if we didn't have the volcanoes creating the islands.
Correct.
So volcanoes are not looked at as being, you know, some kind of a devastating thing. Actually, it's life coming from Earth. It's land coming out of the ocean.
It's life. It's growth. It's new.
Yeah. And then over time, you go from almost the Teka to the Tefiti. And then again, you were kind of talking about a circle of life. And if you look at the big island of Hawaii, you actually find, you know, the active volcano continues to spew out lava, which rolls down the hill into the ocean, cools off in the ocean, and extends the landmass of the island. So the Polynesians living in the Ring of Fire very much respect the fire and the green. And it's part of their beliefs and their gods and so forth that you do have the two, and you need to respect and appreciate the two as opposed to try to fight or to destroy either one. You live with, not to, you live with in harmony as opposed to try to fight the Teka or the Tefiti.
I agree. I like that. I like the way you put that. So, all right, we're at that point. What is the tool?
Well, what I found as the human aspect is the to be a free spirit.
Okay.
To look beyond those things that we're taught. To look beyond those things of our expectations. Like Moana was expected to be the chief, take over as the chief of her village, of her people, but she needed to expand her horizons to really be the best chief she possibly could. And that's what this whole journey was really about. Because then she came back and she was really much more prepared to be a chief than she was when she left. But she was a free spirit. She followed what Grandma Tala said about following that farthest star. She regained the island, or taking Teka and providing the heart back and bringing Te Fiti back because of her free spirit, because of her desire to explore the unknown, becoming stronger than her desire to be safe and sound.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that we all do in human life. We have to have variety. We have to have certainty. We have to have love and connection, and we have to have significance or a reason for being. Those are the four basic things that we need. And then we need to have really growth and contribution, to contribute beyond ourselves, to grow beyond ourselves. Those are really critical aspects. So that free spirit is kind of that one of, I need more variety. I actually will push my desire for feeling certain and comfort to explore and see what else is available. So free spirit was kind of the thing that I looked at there. And then for the tool, the rudder of the sailboat.
Okay.
Because you can have your winds in the sails and you can be going 100 miles an hour, but somebody's got to steer it. Something has got to steer it, if other than just following the direction of the wind. And there's times when we have to tack back and forth. I don't know if you've ever been in a sailboat or people that haven't been in a sailboat. If the wind isn't going exactly in the direction that you want to go, and especially if the wind is coming at you and you're trying to go forward, but the wind is in your face coming at you, the only way to do that is to tack back and forth. And you just keep going back and forth, kind of zigzagging, and you get a little bit more forward and then a little forward, because you can't go forward when the wind is going the other direction. So we need to be our own rudder. We need to recognize that although the path that we're following is straight ahead, but if the wind is blowing in our face, we got to tack. We got to start taking different directions in order to continue to move forward, but it may take us longer. It may take us through paths that we weren't expecting. We may encounter challenges that we didn't expect, but that's life. That's what life is about. That is exactly what Moana was experiencing. So I think that, the rudder is what we need to recognize for ourselves we truly are. The wind will blow. Sometimes the wind doesn't blow. And in fact, if you don't have wind, sometimes you can use that rudder almost like a paddle. You can go back and forth and move your boat even in a calm time.
Really? It makes sense. I never thought of it. I would have just popped it off.
It's not fast by any means. And yeah, that would be a faster way. But, sometimes your rudder is connected to the boat. Right. So there are many ways that you could use that rudder. If you could take it out, you can even try to use it more like a paddle than a rudder. But even as a rudder, there's been time you can kind of go back and forth and possibly move yourself forward. So those are the things that I think that really came out of it for me is don't allow your free spirit to be completely extinguished. Water doesn't necessarily extinguish the fire. Water and fire are kind of two counterparts that kind of work together. You got to have a fire in your heart in order to explore the ocean. You've got to have the ocean in order to keep the fire from burning too hot. And then we need to be the rudder of our sailboat. Our life is our sailboat, but we are the rudder in terms of being able to really figure out how to navigate through our life and to do it purposefully, and to recognize that oftentimes you have to tack. Oftentimes you will be stuck in the doldrums, which are literally true in the ocean, where there's spots where there's very little wind blowing, and the old sailors used to get stuck there a lot. And that's also kind of like the Bermuda Triangle area and things like that, where boats could get in there and then they couldn't get out because they didn't have big oars with them, and they were stuck there, and then they could die because they never got out. And you can also get massive storms in those areas. And the other thing that's really kind of cool about the ocean and all that stuff is we do have Gulf streams in the ocean. So even if like in the Bermuda Triangle, if a plane crashes in the Bermuda Triangle, they can never find it. Why? Well, there's a very strong current actually from like the equator moving up through there all the way to England. So if something is sinking and gets caught in that current, where it actually gets to the bottom is something that is unknown. So
it's like the East Australia, the EAC, the East Australian Current.
yeah, there's a lot of those, and actually those are being affected by climate change now too. But what really comes into life is that, remember, there are undercurrents in life. There are winds in life. So we've got to look above us. We've got to look below us. We've got to look around us, and we've got to navigate. We've got to use our rudder to steer our way in a direction that hopefully is like our heart of Tafiti, in that it is the direction of the furthest star. It is the heart and the desire that allows us to continue to maintain course, even though we may have to go left and right and tack back and forth. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I'm hoping this dragonfly doesn't bite me. It's all of a sudden a huge like dragonfly flew in from outside, and I'm like, where the hell did this come from? Like,
dragonflies don't bite you, but they might sew your lips together. Haven't you ever heard that?
They bite. Trust me. They leave. I got bit. It never fails. I get bit by dragonflies, and they bite me twice here. But every time in my head, my mom always goes, "I told you you're the devil. Look at those horns." And then I fell. Like I said, I've had a lot of broken bones. I have scars on both my eyebrows like this. My mom said, "Oh, at least they're permanent horns now." I'm like, Mom, I have a dark sense of humor because of you. But
well, that makes you a real hardy guy.
Oh, touche. My thoughts on this was actually a little bit along those lines. If I was going to do my own tool, because you and I have been doing that a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it, like, I like how you put it, but for my tool, I actually was using the fire as I have a friend that does soldering, and he's really good at it. And I was picturing the soldering iron because you need it to be able to have the hot touch something cold to make it stay. Mm-hmm. Now, that is for tools. But the same thing goes for nature. You have the hot all of a sudden needed with hitting the ocean to make the cold, and that creates life. So you need things that are not expected. Think of the most beautiful places you can go. You go to Jamaica, you go to the Bahamas, you go to Tahiti, you go to Hawaii. Why does it look so much different? Because it's fresh. It's I shouldn't say fresh, but it's actually newer lands. It's something that's like still evolving in front of us, and that's why we see the beauty. So I looked at it as the tool would be a soldering iron because of the fact you need the hot with the cold.
Well, that's absolutely true, and that's really also kind of the spice of life.
True.
We need to be hot. We need to be cold. We need to, recognize that life is going to have its ups and downs, and it's going to have its fire, its ice. Those are all the things that we want to really look forward to instead of being afraid of.
Correct.
And just by looking forward to instead of being afraid of is what is different within everybody, because we have our own priorities of what we different aspects of life, of those four things that I mentioned. Some people really like uncertainty in life, and they're the skydivers, and they're the explorers and things like that. But there's others that are very much, they need certainty in life, and what they really do is do everything they can, oftentimes, to protect themselves, and that can be dangerous in and of itself as well. For instance, rather than explore the difference in a relationship with somebody new, you stay in a relationship that is painful or abusive. It's something that happens. So fire and ice changing is actually good, and it's good to get a taste of each one. We don't have to live in those spaces, but it's good to be able to experience it.
I agree. I agree. So this was a pretty good episode, and you got me thinking of what one could be. So I would say that our next show movie would be. I was looking at. Will do. Sorry, got an email of a work thing that I got to take care of. I literally have I have to jump into a meet right after this about the website. So just so you have a heads up. But I would actually say to everybody that for the next movie, sticking along the lines of like I like the comedy here, a classic, Shrek.
Love it. Sounds great. I'm up for Shrek.
It's one of those we can have such a very good time with. So yeah, guys,
he's the one who says, when you fart, it's better out than in, or belt or something.
I'm excited to hear you with this one because I have a feeling you. I have a feeling you're going to quote me a lot of things on that one, so I look forward to it. But yeah, all right. So I'm gonna be able to say this is One Square at a Time. I am Brandon Croucher with Delight Cafe. This was Moana, and this is Brett Gordon with Businesses Are People Too. Please go give him a follow on social media. One Square at a Time, a leadership's perception of building the best team around them while being able to understand the tools you need in your tool belt to build for leadership. Wow, that's not what I usually say. This is why I should record it, one of the good ones, and just like edit it over everything. And even if my mouth doesn't match up, it could be like, but it will still sound right. I'm good with it.
Right.
Hold on one sec.